Hey testers. It's time to start the alpha testing, the Discord alpha testing. And before you go download the zip and start testing, I wanted to give you a quick rundown of how the tools work because they aren't streamlined yet. The tools are like the tool panels in the inspector are all still very rough in its current state, so it might be a bit confusing at the beginning. Um, which is why I'm here to show you the super basics. So let's start with the first tool, which is the landmass tool. The landmass tool, basically in its very simple state, would just purely create something like that, which is absolutely fine if you want to go for this kind of landmass. No problem at all. But if you want to utilize the new coastline effects, you have to actually turn that one on. The second you turn that one on, it will actually trace the landmass with the new coastline effect. However, we are still cleaning up here, so there might be still artifacts that you see like this one that you then very quickly just clean up. Or this one, so subtraction mode, and let's quickly clean that one up a little bit. And here, there you go. This is going to be much more refined later, but for now, I think this is totally fine. So in its basic configuration, the coastline mode is deactivated. If you activate it, you can then create interesting landmasses with the according coastlines. Now, in junction with this, there is another coast-related feature I'm going to show you quickly, and that is in the Paths tool. This is the Paths tool where you can draw all the different kinds of paths. You can see it here, like city walls, cliffs, and so on and so forth. There's a bunch of experimental stuff in there, which we're going to clean up later. The coast one is actually the one I want to show you at the moment, because there is, like, this works for all tools, but specifically let's show it for the coast tool, the snap to coast. It's kind of a magnetic dock that puts whatever path you draw magnetically to the coast. So when you do this, you will see it's trying to follow the outlines of it. Okay, we're going to come back to the paths tool in a second. For now, let's just keep in mind that when we create a landmass, it is always created with the beaches as the lowest level, and then you can use different paths like the docks or the coast or whatever we come up with later to then kind of trace the outlines. So for now, this is all you need to know about creating landmasses. Now, there's another important thing. As of now, it is only on first creation. So if you're trying to do this, because it's adding to the existing landmass, it doesn't work. So if you are actually trying to create a new landmass and you want to have it properly with the coastline, you have to create it at the beginning. Adding to it later means that our system cannot trace that new landmass yet. This is work in process, which means that you actually have to modify the path to adjust it again, which we're going to look at in the paths tool. Okay, so this is landmass. Let's quickly, I don't need a, let's keep the coastline for it. Let's quickly create a landmass here. The next tool we're looking at is the prop brush. And again, this is full of settings at the moment because we haven't cleaned up all the UI panels there. This is going to be cleaned up, and right now you're kind of looking at the raw structure of all the available options that we're going to put together eventually. So there are several modes. You know this from the world map editor already. You can do them above all, which let's pick some. Let's pick some trees here. So if I would place a tree, it would be above all. If it is all landmasses. The trees will not be on the water, but they will be on the landmass. A single landmass would be like if you have two separate landmasses, it will pick the one that you're currently placing on and not the other one. And water specifically means it's not placing on the landmass, but on the water. Okay, let me get rid of this. So then we have two different modes here. So let's close transform and randomize for now, so it's not that overwhelming at the moment. This is the single mode. So it means that it will place props as a single click, or of course, as you trace them. But there is a new mode, which is the brush mode. And when you have the brush mode, this is where you have to look at the dynamics. Because depending on whether or not you have roads in there, the way that those props are placed will behave differently. So right now we don't have roads, so I turn this off. And by turning it on and off, you can see that the values change. So right now it's turned off. It has a high density and a low overlap. So if I place them, they will place down within the radius of the brush at a high density, but a low overlap. So let's remove density. Nothing. Okay, that's probably too much of a low density. So low density, no overlap. Whereas if I, for example, let's go for something like that and increase the overlap, we will see that they will now, and with a 73% chance, they will overlap. So if I ramp this up, they would actually start to overlap quite drastically. Okay, so this is how the regular brush mode works if the roadside adjustment is not toggled on. For the next one, we actually need a road, but I am pretty sure that you already know what this means. So let's quickly do a road. I'm going to talk about the roads tool in a second, so we don't have to worry about it. Let's just do some roads here. If I have the brush active, and let's pick, in that case, let's pick some houses for this. Because of the way that it's a brush, we can load up multiple props into the brush. By shift and click onto them, they get this yellow border and they are being charged into the brush. And now when I activate roadside, I have different settings, which is the offset between the buildings and the distance to the road. And when I start brushing, you will see that they are all oriented towards the road with a small offset between the buildings and a small distance to the road. So if I would increase the offset, we would see less. No, wait. I think it's the other way around. Don't worry about it. Play around with it. We'll figure it out. That's why we still have to redo the UI. So apparently the offset actually takes the offset to the road, which means the distance. Yeah, the distance does the distance between buildings. Okay, my bad. So it's this way. Offset means away from the road. Distance means away from the next building. Okay, so as long as the roadside brush is active, everything that you do will be placed alongside the road. It might be that I shouldn't be on a value 1 here. There you go. Okay, which means you can kind of combine those brushes where you say, okay, I want the buildings to be alongside the road. And then I want the trees, which of course I can also load up into my brush. I want the trees to be really dense and really overlapping. That might be a bit too much here. And what what the brush is doing is it's looking for the empty spaces and it's trying to fill them up. So if I would do this, you would see that it is actually avoiding roads and avoiding other buildings to place the props wherever they are. Okay, so that's how the prop tool is working in its current state. And again, it's a bit finicky at the moment because the UI panels are not cleaned up yet. So you need to remember where to click and activate and deactivate. Another nice thing here is if you actually utilize the randomize, which is working, you can change the scale of every prop on a random basis and the rotation. So you will see that they actually rotate and scale now on a randomized setting here, which currently is in a minimum between 15%, minus 15 degrees and max 15 degrees. But you can adjust that whatever you like. Okay, let's do more cleanup here so I can show you the next thing. Now we are with the roads. The roads currently have kind of 2 modes, and then each mode has a sub mode. So this is freehand. So I can do freehand, and this is curved, which means it turns every freehand road in with, it comes with an inherited curvature. Whereas this one is straight, which means that it will not be curved, but it will be straight lines. Let's leave it there. Let's do another one. This one is point to click, which is super if you want to have grids, like very straight roads. So this is basically click down and drag, and there will be the points, and it will also, of course, create points at the intersections. Same goes for curvature. You can do the same thing with curvature, which means that whenever you create a new click, it will create a curvature. Bind props means that when you select a road, so let's quickly add. Bind props means that when you drag this, oh, that's not working at the moment. Maybe it should have been on creation. So the idea behind it, I'm not sure if it's working in the current build, is that when you drag the points, it should actually drag the props along with. I might have had to activate it on the beginning of the creation. Here you can adjust the road width. Those are, I'm actually not super confident to explain them. I know that Ilya gave me an explanation on them. They are kind of detail adjustments for precision drawing. However, I don't feel confident enough to explain them. I will do in a follow-up video if necessary, or you just play around with them. An interesting option is the randomize, because that actually creates more natural roads, because when you use it, it will randomize, and we can see it in a very slight degree. Maybe I should do it something like this. It will randomize the road width, which creates a more organic road type if you want to use something like that. Okay, so let's go for all the roads. Let's delete that. Let's look at the paths tool. So the paths tool follows exactly the same behavior as the roads tool. We have the freehand, we have the point to click, and we have the curvature. We can adjust the width of the brush. So that allows us to say that we've probably, for example, let's say that's 30. We want to have a coast. It should snap to the coast. And now I can do this. And as you can see, it currently snaps to the coast. At the moment, it sometimes renders in the wrong direction, which is based on whether or not you go clockwise or counterclockwise as you draw this, which is fine because you can always select it and use the mirror option to flip its orientation. Another interesting option is the end caps. When you activate them, by default, they are very small. We can probably you can probably see that they are now kind of pointy. They have a pointy end cap, but you can adjust the way that this renders by changing the values, and now it has a much more interesting end cap. And again, I should have done this counterclockwise, so let's turn them around. There you go. So they don't have a proper UI picker yet where you can actually pick the brush type, the path type by the visual representation. This will be part of the beta. So you have to kind of read and interpret or learn them at the moment. Again, this is going to be in the next update. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, there's a lot of path manipulation, the same as with the road manipulation. You should be having a hotkey list in the description where you downloaded this, where you can see that you can remove points by pressing R, splitting by pressing S, so you actually have two separate paths. T changes the type from curvature to straight. So there are a few hotkeys that allow you to manipulate those road types, and of course we will eventually put them into a right-click menu as well. Brushes. Brushes are straightforward. You draw, you create a brush, you have a softness to it and an opacity to it. We don't have a proper layering system in there, which means that if you have a certain brush texture, whatever you do with it will actually affect that brush texture. So a sand texture can be no softness, high opacity, and I draw it and it's fine. But the second I do the same thing for the swamp texture, it will actually affect that one. So it's kind of, you have to remember that each brush texture is kind of inherently having those settings when you combine them. So if I want to have the sand texture with the same softness, I just have to apply it to it right now. Again, there is going to be a proper layer management and a proper sorting. Now, regarding the sorting, you can select those, and if you want to have this texture behind the other one, there is a set index which currently ranks at 100, which gives you the possibility to rank it below or above. So I could put this to 99, and it would now actually sit beneath this one, because now this is 99 in set index and this is 100. Regarding the rest of the tools, we can now do a very quick rundown. We've already done brushes. Labels, nothing has changed. Straightforward, just play around with them. You'll see they work quite nicely. The eraser tool, still, this is a mode that is currently useless. We're going to either remove it or implement it differently. This is the color brush remover, is not working, but the prop remover is working. So you can use the prop eraser. And now we're into the lightings. This is a new tool. And for the sake of it, let me quickly bring back. Oh, roadside should probably be turned off. Let me bring that back. And let me deselect stuff so now it looks better. Okay, so in the lights tool, it is by default disabled, but we can of course enable it. And now we have those point lights that we can place, where we can adjust the radius and the intensity. And we can place lights. We can of course adjust the color of the light to actually place down light sources. Now, as you can see, all the light sources by default are placed above everything. There is a special option in the global lighting section at the bottom that allows you to put all the light sources behind the props. This is eventually going to be based on each light source individually, but right now for this alpha, it is just a global option. So occlusion lets you toggle whether or not the light is rendered above everything or below everything. Basically, that's it. That's all you need to do to adjust light sources. You can, of course, select those light sources and move them around. And, of course, adjust their settings if you want to. Which brings us to the global lighting. So prop shadows is turned on by default, but you can turn it off, of course. You can adjust the softness of the shadow. Let's turn the softness down, and the shadow strength, which gives you, I think, a lot of variety on actually trying to find the right style for you. And that's how you adjust softness. The directional light source works currently with the current UI on a kind of an angle basis that says what's the horizontal angle. So from where does the sun come, which could be somewhere around here, like it's going on a 360-degree track around the world. And a vertical angle, which kind of defines the dawn, midday, dusk distance of the shadow. So as you can see, it is like midday, 90 degrees over it, or it is 0 degrees, so it's a very long shadow. The sunlight intensity then toggles how much light and what kind of ambient light color is affecting the map. We might be improving this quite a bit in the future, but right now this is how it works. So we can actually, if we want to have kind of a dusky setting, we can do something like this and then increase or decrease the sunlight intensity for it. Right. Last but not least, let's talk about the post effects. So the post effects are something that you can toggle on and off. Currently, you can't toggle it on and off. You have to adjust the values, but there will be an on-off toggle. Contrast, saturation, I think they're straightforward. Adjusting the contrast, adjusting the saturation. Vignette will actually add a bit of a darkness vignette around it. We're going to do a lot more with that in the future. And bokeh, also quite fun to play with, is something of a kind of a bokeh blur that you can then, by adjusting the position and the angle and the gamma and all that stuff, you can play around with that to create quite interesting map effects for you. We are currently in the process of streamlining this into presets so that you don't have to play with all those sliders, but there will be given options, and the advanced option then gives you also the ability to play with those sliders. That's it, guys. This is a quick rundown so that you're not completely confused with what you have to do with all that stuff. I hope that helped, and I hope that gave you enough inspiration to start making your maps and to start creating the first city maps. I would love to see them. So please share your map creations within the ticket, our help desk, our Discord community help desk ticket, where you got the build. If you run into any problems, if you want to report a bug, a crash, or something else, please also report it to this specific ticket where you watch this video, where you downloaded this build, so that it is all in one place and we can actually take your feedback and work it into our kind of brush up finalizing task that we are currently working on, to make sure that you have the best available beta coming in on November the 30th. Thank you very much and have fun. Happy map making.